All right, ladies and gentlemen, as I mentioned earlier in the walk around video, today's the last free training that we're going to be running on this topic right now. The next time we'll even potentially open it's like 4 months down the road at least. But what we're going to be talking about today, as I kind of alluded to over the past week, and really have been kind of talking around and helping people understand, is really it's coming from a place of understanding your business better. And specifically, Glenn and I have both been running digital marketing agencies for a long time, and getting in and actually figuring out what in the world you're supposed to be doing. It's like, oh, I got this great trade, like with SEO or with web designer, paid media, or whatever you're doing, right? But there's a lot of different moving pieces, and sometimes it's really hard to kind of see them for what they are. It's like when you first start the mechanic work or something, it's like, yeah, I know how to take this apart, but you don't really understand all the pieces, so you can put it back together and have it actually a working engine or something like that. And so this training today is going to be similar to other ones that we ran this past week, but it's specifically about understanding your business through kind of a framework of understanding that there are really four systems that you need to have in place. And I say systems not like it's a piece of software or it's a whatever. They're integrated systems that you have to have working for the vehicle that is your business to work, right? Those systems are lead generation, prospecting, sales, onboarding clients, and fulfillment of the services that you're selling. And those really didn't come about because we tried to shoehorn everything that we do into those boxes. They're really the organic understanding of like, oh, well, these need to be in place or else you're going to struggle. It's going to be a bottleneck. It's going to be a limiting factor. That's one of the other pieces of language that we've used to kind of point at what these areas are, right? If you don't have enough good prospecting leads coming into your business, no matter how great in sales you are and onboarding and fulfillment, you're going to struggle because you can't grow as quickly as you would otherwise. And that's true of all of these. And the other thing that as we got more into this, I realized is that you've almost got to kind of have the whole map and know the lay of the land, like know these four areas, and then you almost kind of start working backwards. Like what you're actually fulfilling is going to inform what you need to do to onboard. And what you're doing to onboard needs to be in place before you start selling and closing sales. So people know what they're going to get after they say yes. And what you're doing in sales and all these other areas are going to inform on what you're doing to prospect and generate new leads for your business, or else you're just scattershot, right? You can buy a list of all the businesses in America. Is that necessarily lead generation? No, right? You can be a lot more selective, and because you're more selective, you can be much more strategic in how you allocate your time and resources to making your actual business work and your clients' businesses work. So Glenn, thank you for being on today with me. We've been doing a lot of these this past year, but I'm just as excited, if not more so, than I was when I kind of started this venture with Glenn and got to know him better and started to kind of pick his brain more and understand really how much of a mastery that he has of these concepts and what they can do for your business through people he's worked with and mentored, but also in his own business and how a lot of these things kind of grew out of his own understanding and his own experience with things. So Glenn, do you want to kind of kick off things and give people or a sense of what this is about? We've got a training program. I'll let you know right now. This is a sales webinar, but it's also free training to help you understand these pieces are critically important to your business. You need to pay attention to them. You need to kind of allocate resources to seeing what to do to get these things to not be a bottleneck in your own business. But if you keep letting me talk, I'll just keep talking. So let's not do that.
All right. Well, it's kind of hard not to be enthusiastic and excited because I know I've personally spoken with about a dozen people that have joined this already and talking about different things that they've had with obstacles, just trying to get to know one another as I kind of lay out my portion of the training and how it's going to be structured over the last week. And I tell you, I'm looking forward to it so much because of different obstacles that other people that have already joined have shared with me. You know, whether it be, hey, I took this course, but it didn't really work for me because X, or hey, I was doing this, but I was struggling because of Y. And I think that's what I'm excited about the most, is being able to sit down and talk with people in these groups and kind of go over understanding, just like you said, without knowing your path, if you will, your how you're getting from A to B, it's kind of hard to get there. But when you understand your services you're offering to deliver forwards and backwards. Then, like you said, having those systems to bring those on is going to make you so much more confident and your message so much clearer when you're doing a sales presentation. And when you know that you're not afraid to sell somebody because you can do that to it, then to kind of take that and frame it as far as ways to get in front of more people, attract more attention to you, influence more people, whatever you want to talk about it, it just makes everything so much simpler down the road. I remember back when I started doing training at the phone book almost 20 years ago, and seeing people that when you see that light bulb go on their eye and they're like, ah, I got this. And then they come back in, they're like, I'm so excited. I learned this, I did blah, 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 blah. And this person said yes, or I did X, Y, Z, and this happened. I think it's just kind of contagious. And when you can get around a group of people like we're going to have in here, and their excitement is going to bleed over into other people. Their successes are going to motivate other people. So I think just having a group of people together, going through learning different techniques, understanding different concepts and philosophies, and being able to share them with one another, it's going to be an awesome, and it's going to be a boot camp. That's right, not army training, as our buddy calls it in stripes, but you know what? A good kind of intense training to really help people in all four of those facets. So I'm excited to get started. First call is going to be tomorrow. I'm going to start doing calls 10 a.m. on every Saturday and 4 o'clock on every Tuesday, just to make sure we can get through all of this stuff in that time frame.
That's awesome. And just to kind of elaborate on what Glenn said, I've also got training that's in there. It's going to be a lot of live training as well. One of the things that I do want to bring attention to is that this really came about from exactly what Glenn said. I may use different language, but it's about helping people not be stuck. And to not be stuck, you may have like the greatest, I'll go back to mechanic stuff. I'll try to keep it cohesive within that. It's like you may have the greatest engine on the planet, right, so to speak. You got tons of power. You can do SEO incredibly well, and you can definitely rank your clients. But if you don't have a good drivetrain, if you don't have good tires, if you don't have any steering, knowing where you're going to be able to go, that it just sits there on an engine stand, and it might be nice to look at, and it gives you a sense of feeling that, hey, you know, I've got this potential, right? It's really potential until you've got all these pieces put together. When you've got all the pieces put together, you've now got a vehicle, and you can keep honing and working on these different components. And I suggest you do. I continue to do this, but kind of using that metaphor to understand what you're doing and what you need to work on. It's like, okay, well, I got this great engine, good tires, decent steering wheel, and steering capabilities, but every time I put the pedal to the metal, transmission breaks, rear end breaks. Like, it's like those are the things that are holding you back. And so you've really got to have all of these kind of designed together and understand even what they are, because if you don't understand mechanic stuff and this metaphor is flying over your head and you just put the pedal to the metal and your car just goes clunk and something breaks and you're like, well, I have no idea what's going on. Like, what do I keep? I know the engine maybe, and so I'll go work on the engine. Maybe that's not the problem, right? I see a lot of people who have gotten involved with search engine optimization who continue to try to get more and more search engine optimization training when the actual thing that's holding them back may be lead generation or closing sales. And if they're not closing sales, they may think, well, it's just because I'm not using the right language or I don't have the right script. The problem really may be that they don't know how to onboard, and so they can't really put the sales piece with the fulfillment piece. And so maybe, Glenn, we could break in and kind of talk a little bit more about each of these specific elements. We've kind of alluded to how they fit together, but until we get into a little more detail on what we've encountered, what we actually do in our own business, it may be a little too abstract. So let's focus in. Do you want to start at the beginning or at the end? I think they both wind up being the beginning, depending on what we start talking about. So
I think at the end for this purpose, because the biggest thing that I've seen marketers do over the decade I've been out on my own is chasing shiny objects. This guru said I need to do this, so I'm going to go do that. Or this person said I need to do this, so I'm going to go do that. I can tell you wholeheartedly that understanding how to build a web page properly, how to structure it, like we're going to show you in here, is the best shiny object you're ever going to need. We've done it to build hundreds, if not thousands of websites, and definitely thousands of pages that rank very quickly and very well with Google because they're built properly. Conversely, I've seen a lot of people spend a lot of money doing all other types of things to help a website rank, and that be their limiting factor is Google couldn't understand what the page was about, so it didn't rank it. So I think just starting with that point of it and truly understanding forwards and backwards, this is what needs to be on a page for Google to say, oh, this is about a plumber in Phoenix. This is about a plastic surgeon in Dallas. If you understand those things, the number of links you need are so fewer. The other things you need to do are so much easier that it makes it a lot easier to rank things and makes it a lot more profitable for the people to do so. I think over the years we've been doing this, our worst operating ratio was 85%, but that's because we were spending a lot of money in some R&D and some other things. So what that means is for every dollar that we bring in as a company, 85% of it was ours, only 15% went to expenses. I've been able to hover right around 90% most of the time. And that's not a bad way to be able to do things if you want to put more money in your pocket. Because a lot of times we hear, oh, this person sold this much money or that much money and brought it into their agency, which is great, but I'm concerned about one number, and that's how much stays in my bank account.
Profit, right? You got
Mhm.
to get down to profit. Like I go out today and run a bunch of paid media ads and generate 10 million in sales, but if I spent 11 million, that's not really a business that I want other people to emulate if I care about them. So
Yeah.
this really is about profit. And my numbers are not bad, but they're not as good as yours. And you do talk about how you've gotten those costs down with implementation. I actually use Glenn and a lot of his team for websites that I build. I say I build, I don't have to build, but I have to have all the other pieces to know how to plug into that.
Mhm.
Right. And this really comes down to, if we've been doing this same thing 10 years ago, we'd be focusing on links, right? Links are like you could just send links to something and you had a couple maybe things on page that you needed to do. That was the cheapest, fastest way to get the results. And so
Mhm.
this is about results. And over that course of time, even back then, but even more and more so, like I've seen every time the algorithm updates or new patents get released and implemented or whatever it might be, it's more about relevance. And relevance, I took this apart in like a huge big series I did in 2018 called Building a Quality Site Base. It's about clarity. If you can clearly tell a machine what a page is about, now it's just kind of like holographically or fractally. Now you just have to put the whole thing together, right? Okay, so then the pages that support it, right? Are those about a similar topic? Yes. Okay, and they link back over. Like that's the concept behind silos or hub pages, spoken wheel model, all of that kind of thing. Those all speak to relevance being important. And these are models that have been around for a long time, but they're about relevance, period. Right. So if you get relevance built into your pages and understand the nature of the content, you understand also, like Google just comes right out and tells you exactly what they think is related to the topic that you've looked for. If you do a Google search, they'll tell you related searches at the bottom, right? So it's there front and center, very clear. Now it's like, oh yeah, I know that. Getting it done. You've got to
Mhm.
get it done, right? And I can go in there in WordPress and I can write out articles. I'm a decent writer, decent copywriter. I know enough about SEO to rank pages. But if I'm spending all my time doing that myself and my business isn't going, I have to say, wait a second, maybe I need to get someone else to help with this because I don't have time to get more leads, sales, and onboard clients, right? And so all of these things being important, that's if you already are at that point, what you need to do is say, okay, I need to now look at my business and why my car proverbially is not actually going. I got this great big engine and I can't get I can't get anywhere with it, right? So if you can expand on that, or we can jump to the next topic. I don't know if there's a good bridge that you want to go today
Yeah.
with content. Yeah.
Well, and I think as you get more comfortable with that optimization point or whatever services you're offering, now when you're starting to implement those, some issues I've ran into and some problems I hear from other marketers around the country is, holy crap, they said yes, what do I do now? And we've all kind of been through that. So, I
Did
mean,
I ask you that myself? Maybe.
maybe.
I will tell you, I've experienced that numerous times, and it's a good problem to have, but you also need to know what to look at when that problem comes up or when that question comes up, right?
So when you get all other three of these pillars we're going to talk about in place, This is very important because if you're working and scaling and bringing on multiple clients at a time, when you don't have systems in place, it can be very stressful and very frustrating compared to when you follow some of these systems that I have with agreements, with payments, with all the different things I need. I mean, literally, Fletch can say, okay, I want to buy ABC from you. I can go to the next customer in an hour and they say they want to buy X, Y, and Z. Literally, no matter what they want to purchase, within 15 minutes, I have agreements in front of them. I have payment options in front of them. I have an email to them with PDFs of this is what I need from you over this, this, and this, and a timeline. Because the more organized you are when you start that relationship, it's going to set the tone for that entire relationship. I mean, to the extent where I've had sometimes clients call me up saying, I'm sorry, I know I didn't get everything over to you. I'm working on it. I'll work on it all weekend, because it's handled in a business manner to say, this is what I need from you so that I can do this for you. So just setting all those things up, I think, starts off the relationship in such a better place. It's going to create a different type of relationship than most have encountered over the time.
Well, and what you spoke to there is key. And it also lets us bridge over to the next topic we're going to talk about, which is closing sales, is that this isn't just out of left field. They don't say yes and they think, oh, I'll pay and then I don't have to do anything else. You've been able to talk to them during your qualification process and the sales conversation so that they understand, hey, in order to do this the right way, I need this from you, I need this from you, I need this from you. So they are already expecting what's going to happen after the yes, and that is key. Psychologically speaking, being able to visualize what happens after they say yes, not just the success they have, right? That's kind of common anchoring and like, oh, forward pacing and all that kind of thing. The forward pacing needs to include these elements that you're doing with your onboarding process. It does a lot of beneficial things. It seems like it might be counterproductive to closing more deals, but what actually happens is like, oh, this person's really got it put together. This is now actually very different than anything else I've experienced in the past, where somebody said they were doing SEO for me and they never even got my password to log into the website. It's like, what were they actually doing? If they weren't doing anything on my site, were they just, reporting stuff that I might already rank for? Like, it's like it can be a jolt in a good way to help people say, welcome to real business, as Mike Hayden has, I won't say famously said, but very impactfully said.
Mhm.
These are the things you need to do to make sure that you're able to close the sales you should close, right? And that's a big stretch too, because when things are tight and you're trying to just say yes to any opportunity that comes up, you might say yes to a lot of things that you really don't have the understanding of putting together. And that's what that, like, oh crap, now what do I do? This will
Well,
help you be able to say no to the clients that really aren't right for you. And that's the best decision. That won't disenfranchise your client base. It will keep your margins high and it will let your system actually work. It doesn't mean in the future you can't circle back and say yes to that if you have different things in place. But you need to be able to say no. And the only way to say no is to understand actually what you're doing and what that onboarding process looks like.
well, and these are very important to have it documented. Just because for something you and I'll talk about a little bit later, I was talking to someone that you and I, a project we're doing together. I was speaking with him yesterday, and we framed, this is exactly what's going to happen. This is going to be step 2. And talking to him last night, they're like, well, where's step 2? I'm like, well, we were going to do step 1, and then we are going to discuss and tell you how much would be for step 2. I thought this included everything. I'm like, we had this conversation. So when you don't have things in writing, the propensity for be a miscommunication increases. And the one thing I want to kind of talk about with all 4 of these phrases is framing and creating expectation. When we start prospecting, when you say this is the type of stuff we're going to do, are you having these problems? Ask questions you can solve. So you're framing expectation from a prospecting to where when you set up that appointment, you're framing the expectation. This is what we're going to do on our sales call. From the sales call, you're framing the expectation on this is what I need to do from you on an onboarding so that then I can do this and have everything kind of laid out. I would rather deal with an objection up front than deal with an angry customer down the road. So the more all of these processes are in place, life can be pretty smooth. Are you still
Yep.
going to have trouble? Yeah, you're still dealing with humans. People still hear things differently with what's said. But the more problems you can alleviate from the beginning, the easier life is going to be. And I think that's what we're all trying to do. We're trying to do best by others, make a few dollars, and enjoy our lives.
Yeah, and what you kind of spoke to is a kind of a specific example with anonymity involved. But the reason to have a clear agreement in place is not so that you can go back and say, no, you signed it. Like, it's in place so that you can make sure you cover those talking points and actually discuss it with them, right? Until it's in place, you won't know what is important to make sure you do communicate beforehand, right? It's like, oh yeah, I bought SEO. Well, okay, what really is SEO? Because I could sell you 1,000 different SEO offers right now. It's like, what are we actually going to be doing here, right? And so that is a way to help train your brain to understand what's important, so that in your communication before that point can help other people understand that it's important to have these elements in place. And this is kind of the process we need to follow to get the result that all of us want, which is a good relationship that continues for a long time where everybody makes money, right? That's what we're trying to get to. Okay, so you got to be specific. You've got to be very clear on these details to set yourself up to be successful, and not successful like to win and like beat the other guy or girl, but to be successful so that you can grow your businesses together with the offers that you present. And like I said, there's a bunch of different offers, right? Glenn and I are going to be talking about a lot of different offers that we put together. Some very specific, some a little more generalized, right? I do SEO. What does that mean, right? What are you actually going to be selling? What are your KPIs even for that, right? You just send them ranking reports. Like, you need to have all those things in place, because when you're more specific with what you're actually going to be doing, and whether it's reporting or whether it's just managing some technology for them or whatever it might be, the more specific you can be, the easier it's going to be for them to start envisioning what the relationship looks like and what they're going to be getting, what they're going to be paying, what they can expect, all that kind of thing.
Exactly. And I'm glad you said relationship, because that's really from the time they say yes, in my opinion, what we're building upon. Because if you're building a relationship and offering a solution, you're not a commodity. It's harder to get rid of you, and they're going to give you more leeway should there be a bump in the road, which inevitably there will be. And as we all know from a personal aspect, the best way to build that relationship starts with having conversations. And your sales call should be a conversation. It shouldn't be where you show up and throw up and just keep talking to them. And that's what we're going to go through, fine points of a good sales process. Learning how to ask good opening questions. Understanding that you have one mouth and two ears for a reason. You should be listening twice as much as you're talking, to by asking, after you've asked your customer good opening questions, or prospective customer, so that they can give you everything you need to give them a justified solution based on their wants, their goals, and their needs, and then back it up and justify it with a return on investment. Because we've talked about this several times, people get interested with emotion. They solidify that decision by analytic thinking, or this is what's going to cost me, this is what I'm going to get out of it. So when you follow a good sales process of doing a good needs analysis by asking them all these questions, finding out where they're at today, where they want to be at tomorrow, next week, next year, then you can offer them a good solution. It's going to be based on what they want. It's not you just trying to throw crap at the wall and see what sticks. You can actually offer solutions that they want. They're happy and excited to start business with you. So trust me, the sales process is something that I've been working on and with for, like I said, about 20 years now. And there have been many times when I've gotten off a call, didn't go quite the way I thought it should have, and they didn't end up hiring me. And inevitably, when I go back through and watch the call, especially if I've recorded it, yep, I missed this part of the sales process, or I missed that part. So it's definitely something that's been proven over the years that this process really helps you to convert at a higher rate when you pay attention, follow the flow. I kind of always give my clients, or prospective clients, an itinerary. That way I'm saying, this is what we're going to go over. And it's not exact word for word, but we're going to do this. I'm going to find out about your business. I'm going to tell you some more about my business, blah, 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 blah. But by having that roadmap, it's going to remind you not to skip over parts. It's going to help your prospective client from trying to jump ahead just to find out how much it is, because you have to do these things. I think until you find out everything you can about a business owner, you don't earn the right or have the right to present anything to them, because you really don't know what they want or need.
Yeah, that's really key. One of the things I've come across recently, and I'll go into more detail on in for members inside the training. Something I became aware of a long time ago, but I've started to kind of meld it up better now and understand is like when the military is going to solicit for bids on a new piece of technology that they need, whether it's like a weapon system or a piece of software, whatever, they write the spec, right? They say this is what it needs to do. Boom, boom, boom. It needs to do all of these things, right? And then it's like a solicitation of bids, and then companies can bid on that, right? A lot of people in SEO have been like, oh, well, my client wants to know exactly what I'm doing and all that kind of thing. It's like, well, you shouldn't have ever got to that place where you got a yes and it wasn't a yes based on the spec. The spec are the results, the KPIs, what you need access to, what the time, the turnover is going to be, like how long it's going to take. Those are the things that they can agree on, right? You need to come to an agreement on that. You need to be able to communicate that thing. This is going to be what you get. This is what you're saying yes to, right? Not how I do my business, not exactly how much margin I make or anything like that. A lot of people get into trouble because they haven't built that spec out. They don't have a clear, that spec is an offer. This is the offer I have. I'm trying to make it as clear as I can. Let me keep working on making it more clear, if we're not there yet, right? And what Glenn talks about just now is you increase that conversion percentage. That conversion percentage is going to be based exactly on their understanding of what they're getting, right? Now, if you guys are both agreeing on what that is, that's great. The less, the more foggy that is, the less, the more abstract that is. They may have some idea about what they're going to get, and you have some idea of what you're going to deliver. And the further away those are, that's when you encounter these problems down the road, right? And so making sure that you are as clear as you can be, and you keep working on this again as well, is going to only increase the amount of people that you can bring in that you should bring in, right? Because you go sell something to somebody and they don't know what it is. You might get a sale, but it's not a good fit. It's going to turn out to be bad for your business, bad for their business. It might feel good, but you don't want to get into that's not a way to build something that has some legs, right? That can run for a while, that can grow, that you can keep customers and relationships for a long period of time. And so this just really points back to clarity and making sure that you can communicate that properly, and so that you can set up that sales message to make sure you talk about the psychology, certainly, of helping somebody understand what you do, so you can align what they want with what you can deliver. But the clarity of saying, I know what I'm going to get here, and yes, this is worth it, right? So then there's a bunch about actually sales, right? Helping people want something before you let them justify it, and or you put your pieces in place to justify it. A lot of, it's psychology, but it's even more than that, right? um so the training goes explicitly into how Glenn and I each do that in different ways, right? A lot of it overlap, but we've all got our own personalities. And one of the things I continue to buy training. I like keeping up with what Greg Morrison's doing. Some other people in the industry that I've developed relationships with over time. I like continuing to stay at, a higher end of my understanding of search engine optimization. But I've also paid a lot of money for a lot of other training that was designed for sales. Like I've been in sales since 2000 in one way or another, right? Selling my own services or my own business, or I was an employee as a dollar rent-a-car sales agent. Like I've been exposed to a lot of training, paid training. I paid money to a man that I'm very fond of and got a ton of value out of it. I'm talking like $25,000 to help understand how to speak on stage and close deals from stage, right? But it was like I knew I wanted that because it was great. But then it's like that's just one piece, right? That's frankly, that's the ability to generate leads. I
Mhm.
still had to be able to deliver all this stuff on board, like all of that kind of thing. So, and I think that was definitely worth it. It's brought me more money back than I ever paid for it. But when you look at, sales training things, which I also am a part of, I've bought sales training recently from people, and I love it. But it's one path, it's one avenue, and there are a lot of different ways to build your business. And so this is not necessarily going to be about cold calling and lining people up through prospecting and lead generation that way. You can apply it to that. If you've got that going and it's good, this will help you put the rest of the pieces together and understand that piece for what it is. But again, I wanted to make sure people didn't get stuck. And so this is not only about one piece of this thing. This is about all of the pieces you need to make the whole business work. And so then that gets to talking about kind of the fourth element, which is prospecting lead generation.
Amen. And I think that's the one thing that people have kind of resonated with when we start talking about this in Cast. It's understanding a lot of different ways of bringing clients or getting in front of prospective clients and getting them enticed to raising their hand. So there are some people like cold calling. You know what? I think the main thing to understand with any of these is kind of to what I call knowing your numbers. So how many people do I need to cold call to get the number of appointments I need to get the number of sales I need? Because everything filters down through a funnel system, basically, for a better analogy. So the further people are away from you, the more activity you have to have for the same results. So making sure that people understand that if I want to talk from stage or I want to talk on video calls like this to groups, how many people do I need in the groups to get enough people to be interested to raise their hand to get enough people to buy? If I want to do face-to-face sales, business networking, whatever you want to do from that, well, what's my best way to do that? And what kind of numbers can I expect? If I want to do cold calling on a phone, same thing. I need to have a little more contacts there than the other two. But if I'm comfortable with doing that, knowing the better way to do it to improve my success or my conversion rate, this is how to do this. If I'm going to be doing email, if I'm going to be doing Facebook, if I'm going to be doing LinkedIn, I think the better you understand all of these mediums to communicate, get in front of people, and to start beginning to influence them, the more successful you're going to be. Just personally with our company, we do multiple things because I want to bring on a lot of clients, the right clients, at a quick pace. So the best way to do that, in my opinion, is to use multiple mediums so that you constantly have people raising their hands and doing these things. And the more you're doing a lot of different things, you're going to be out in front of a lot more people and you're going to have people contact you. I just had a guy contact me this morning from Massachusetts because he needed help with, I wanted to get some more information about ADA compliant websites. You know, I had a person I'm working with out of New Jersey that was referred to me by somebody else because they had a question about these things. So the more you're visible, there's no saying, we don't get good luck, we make good luck. The more you create information and establish yourself in your spheres as the go-to person, the more business you're going to get to. So it's just kind of understanding different ways of being able to promote yourself, to brand yourself for X, Y, or Z, and then to go out and start getting in front of more people. So more people raise their hand, more people raise their hand, more sales calls, more onboarding, more revenue, everything just down the road.
Yeah, this is really big. And so we call it 4 pillars, right? There's kind of 4 pieces: prospecting, lead generation, sales, onboarding, fulfillment, right? But that first piece, I say prospecting and lead, it's like there's 2 things there. There actually are 2 things there, right? So a prospect is somebody that you can serve. They are somebody that is in your niche. They have a website, they have a business that would benefit from more traffic. That's a prospect. A lead is somebody who's engaged with you in some way.
Mm-hmm.
The gap between there can be massive and it can be very tight.
Mm-hmm.
And so one of the things that I look at and I've been doing lead generation for a long time, and I came to this understanding the hard way, which was I don't have enough new call opportunities, new sale opportunities coming into my business. And so getting into that more, it's like, well, everybody's your prospect. It's like I can go buy a list and get a ton of prospects, but they're not leads until you've engaged in some way, right? And so then it's like, well, I'd like for all these prospects to potentially be my leads until I know different. So what can you do? And this is marketing, right? That's kind of the piece of marketing. Like everybody's a prospect maybe, but only certain people are really set out to, would be a good fit for you guys to work together, right? And so understanding, yeah, go ahead, Glenn. Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, and to learn from a lot of the mistakes that we've made. I mean, let's say you want to buy a list. Trust me, I've spent a lot of money on lists. Now I have a company that I know, that I've worked with, I trust them, that I can buy 10,000 leads in a certain niche for $1,000, so 10 cents a lead. That's where the breakoff is, where you start getting good value. And I know these leads are going to be decent because I've worked with these people for a while and they've been better than other places I bought lists from. So I think one thing that in my heart, I think is going to be different with this course than a lot of other courses that I've been around is just taking my experience, your experience, Mike's experience. And when someone says, hey, what do you think about this? We've done a lot of these things. We've tried a lot of them. If not, and you bring something that we think is interesting, I'm going to warn you right now, we're going to try it. And then we're going to say, hey, this is what we saw from this. This is the result.
I'm going to
Because
warn
we can
you right
all learn
now.
from one another. What's that?
I love that. I'm going to warn you right now. We're going to try it. If we
Yeah,
haven't, right? It's like I don't obviously know it doesn't work, so I'm gonna
yeah,
give it a shot, right? And through that, we're applying all the experience we have, and some of that, the experience, it's like it kind of becomes its own box, right? It's like my experience is going to be a certain thing, but when I'm going to go into that, and like you said, I'm buying leads. Well, I'm not even going to look at that as a lead. I'm going to look at that as a prospect. It's like, what would I need to do with these businesses to get them to be a lead? Okay, I'm going to start to think about that a little bit more, right? And so I really haven't done a lot of cold calling, very very little. Um, but I also don't doubt it works, right? There's enough people making a ton of money with it. It's like, oh yeah, that works, right? But I tend to be I don't know, maybe a little more cerebral, or it's about taking things apart, right? And I've followed enough David Mills things. I say followed enough. I've followed everything that I know he's ever published. But one of the things that he said, maybe 2015, give or take, was very soon, this is not going to be a game where you can't find somebody that can rank you. It's going to be a game about who they choose, right? There's going to be enough of a pool that you can actually get decent results with a bunch of different companies. So how is your company, how is your offer different? How does it stand out? Can it make more money out of less? Can it deliver results at a more affordable price? Or can the customer really have kind of the velvet rope experience while working with them, so I know I'm in the right place because this all just works really well. All of those are different ways that you can, if you have in place, approach a customer that may already have a vendor or provider for this type of thing and say, hey, are they getting you this? Have they talked to you about this? Do you even know about this? They're your professional liaison to the world of the internet. Have they told you about lawsuits on websites? Have they told you about privacy policies and ADA and terms and conditions and what those can lead to if you don't have them in place? They came to you as the professional. If they're not talking to you about those things, the implication of you even mentioning them to them, mentioning those elements to them, is that, oh, this person is more knowledgeable, or they want to help me more than the person I might already be using. And so it just, you can enter into very different conversations, and as soon as you have a conversation, engagement, interaction, now you got a lead, right? This is somebody now who wants to hear about what you can offer them and what you can do.
exactly. So I'm excited. I think we have somebody on the call here that's worked with one or two of us from a time Fletch.
Oh, who
Let's
do we
see what
got?
they have to say.
Yeah,
Hold on.
I don't see anything other than just the normal little panel. I open them up. Who do we got?
Give me 1 second.
All right.
Dismiss.
Should I get the banjo out and start playing some songs?
It never hurts.
It always hurts. Nothing else that hurts my fingers because my calluses aren't built up enough. I can see your screen now, Glenn.
You can? Okay, I hit the wrong button. Let me see how to stop that.
Okay.
I don't
All I
know.
see is the tab for go to launching.
All right, give me 1 second.
Oh, I see her. Yeah.
Wendy, do you have your microphone handy?
Hey there.
Hey, how are you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing? Happy Friday.
Great, thanks.
Hi, Fletch.
Hello.
Hey there.
I just want to bring you on board. You've probably worked with one or two of us over the years or whatever, and just to see if you had anything you wanted to share for the rest of the people that were on board.
Yeah, I've had the pleasure of knowing both of you for a few years through different groups. So I'm grateful for that. Particularly Glenn has been an awesome mentor, and Fletch too. I've always, I'm always on your webinars as well, and your little thoughts as you're walking. I'm really grateful for that. I really like what's happening here. I think it's really been a lacking situation in a lot of groups that I've been in, is how no one teaches all these pieces as a holistic process, you know, and I think that's really important to understand from a sales perspective, from a fulfillment perspective, all of it. I struggled in the sales piece, and a lot of it came down to my systems not being in place because, um, you know, my thing is I want to add tremendous value to people. And so taking someone's money, I take that very seriously. So feeling like not having the confidence in providing what I'm selling really held me back from going out there and selling more. So it really stalled my business in a big way. And not having those processes kind of um, all coming together, you know, I had each piece. I had the tech side, I had the fulfillment side, but I didn't have them all into one big piece that I could access quickly and easily. And it really has held me back. Um, so I think this is really huge. I mean, there's, you know, different sales techniques is awesome to understand. I'm still learning. I'm still out there getting my prospecting systems down, what's working, and it's ever changing. So, you know, you jump into a new group and you pay for this system and you pay for that system. But realistically, if you can't integrate it, you don't have a strong business. And I really think what you're doing is going to benefit a lot of people in a huge way. So congrats on doing this. It's amazing.
I
Awesome.
love hearing
Thanks.
that, Wendy. Yeah, yeah, I always smile when I hear, you know, somebody speak to something that I see as important as well, and I facilitate whatever ways I can, um, just bringing people's attention to things I've encountered in my own life, right? And I'm not shy at all about sharing. I think people have watched any of the stuff I do. I tend to try to be very open with it. And
Yeah.
while I knew a ton, I say a ton, like probably if you weighed it, it would weigh 2,000 pounds. I'm talking about a ton of information about search engine optimization. I really did. I understood it very well. My fulfillment processes for it were not even close to as good as they could have been, right? And it was because I didn't understand these as processes and systems that needed to be in place. It's like, oh, if I know enough SEO, magically somehow people are going to know that. And I think a lot of people did, and a lot of people bought from me. And the experience of that is really a bumpy road as I start to figure this out more and more. It's like, oh man, onboarding, like what do I do? Like I could talk to people and they could say yes, and they kind of knew that like I'd figure out how to make it work. But the running of the business side was really bumpy. Man, it was really rocky, and it didn't need to be that way. And so coming to this kind of different understanding, like taking a step back and saying, like, what's really going on here? Like what do I need to have in place that works so that what I do know about search engine optimization can flow through it and let everybody have a better experience with this whole thing. Right, Glenn?
Yeah, and I think the one thing that kind of held true for me in 2020 was even though we've had an agency that's grown and grown and grown and been fairly successful, I would say in other people's opinions, I always feel like I'm failing every year, but I think that's probably a good reason for me to feel that way because if I wasn't failing, I wouldn't have high enough standards or goals. But what's been apparent for me in 2020 is to find the best ways to do what I do well and do that more and get the things that I don't do well off of my plate and onto someone that does those things well. So, I mean, whatever, one thing that we're going to be kind of preaching a little bit and kind of sharing with you here is finding out your you. What's your business? What's your model to do this? And is it through strategic relationships? Is it through partners? Is it through virtual assistants? Is it through hiring people? Is it through partnering with people? I mean, I think for any of us to get to the level we need to do or want to get to, it's kind of, okay, how do I let go? How do I do this right? And how do I put myself in position so that I can keep score and win and keep going up?
Yeah, and this is, you know, even more like kind of clarity or transparency. Like that's kind of how this all came to be. Like Glenn and I and Mike, we talked about this stuff a year ago, specifically or explicitly with the ADA stuff, right? And then, you know, we formed a business and we've been running it and this and that. And what we kind of ran the year, and we got to a place where it's like, you know what, it kind of makes more sense maybe for us to be joint venture partners, right? And so that's like, okay, that's kind of really how CAS has come about, right? It's kind of a joint venture kind of agreement. And the reason that is really important is that what it can let you do is to say, okay, these are the pieces of the business that I'm responsible for, and they're everything. Like, you have to personally be responsible for everything happening. And if you can know, well, I can do these pieces very naturally, I guess, right? Maybe not well yet, but naturally. They're a place I do put my attention, and it feels naturally for me to engage in this manner, whether it's knocking the website out, or whether it's the sales piece, or whether it's more the marketing and lead generation piece. It lets you understand how you fit into the greater pieces of the whole. You still have to be, so I bring clients on, and Glenn and Mike are the ones who are building a lot of the websites that I bring on as clients through Search Explosion or WebRite. And so I'm still personally responsible for all those clients actually getting what they want, which means I need to be responsible for making sure that the stuff gets built the right way, but I don't have to build it myself. And because Glenn has a different mind and a different place where he naturally, fits and works, he knew he had all those specs. He's like, this is what we do. And I'm like, okay, I can sell that. Right. And so that's how we can kind of all work together. Right. And really there's a lot of opportunities to do that sort of thing. So while you do have to be responsible for making sure all of these happen, it doesn't mean you necessarily have to be the person doing them.
Mhm.
But when you understand they all have to happen, it lets you say, I really do need to allocate resources in some way, even if it's just attention, to making sure fulfillment gets handled, or sales handled, or lead generation handled, or even onboarding, right? You can be the person that is responsible for really that transition from sales to onboarding, right? Or from sales to fulfillment, right? That onboarding piece is key. And it's become a little more seemingly important, right, through different training programs that I've been a part of and things like that. But the reason it's more important is because it's a huge piece, and it informs what you're going to be doing in the sales piece, which informs on what you're going to do with lead generation prospecting, right? So Glenn, I don't know if that derailed things a little bit, but I wanted to kind of talk explicitly about like your role, like you as somebody who, if you buy the training, you're going to understand all these pieces. It doesn't necessarily mean you need to do them yourself. It means you need to be responsible for making sure that they get handled properly.
Well, I think the biggest part as a business owner, as a general contractor, however you want to kind of frame it, is you need to understand the different concepts, because if you don't, and you work with somebody, whether it be a partner, an employee, wherever they're at in the world, the propensity is to do the least amount possible if you're not the one in charge of or responsible for the company. So from a prospecting aspect, if you're going to outsource that, my daughter's our director of marketing now, so she's taking care of these things, getting that off my plate, so I don't have time for it. But if I don't know exactly what needs to be done, she could do not enough, not work hard enough to get the results I'm looking for. So you have to know that in order to know what to expect from someone. From a sales campaign, if you're listening to sales calls, which a lot of the times I record things. If I have people out there making sales calls for me, I have them record them so that I can listen to them. And when I see someone slacking off, not following the process, not doing what needs to be done, then I can say, let's sit down. We need to retrain on this. This is what I need you to do because you're not following A, B, C, D, or G. Conversely, like you talked about websites, I had to learn how to build websites because I got tired of being hosed over by people in some other part of the world that I couldn't walk over on their, knock on their door and say, hey, what the heck are you doing here? And still, as I've grown my team and scaled, sometimes I'll have a developer say, oh, you can't do that. I'm like, really? I'm still not the guy that's great at going out and creating HTML from scratch, but I can copy and paste and manipulate it with the rest of them.
One of the
And
best.
go and say, so I would go do what they said couldn't be done and say, okay, I'll take a look at this. I'd record it, make a video. This is how I did this. So next time, before you tell me something can't be done, go do a little bit of homework, please. So again, it's being able to, politically incorrect, is being able to call bullshit. Anytime you're working with other people to help you with your business, you have to know it if you want to make sure it's done right.
Yeah, and so for me, I'll say bullshit too, just so we both said the word. But like I kind of I come at a lot of this from more of a curiosity side, right? And so it's like if somebody's slacking off, like why? Maybe they're not clear on this being important in their life. Like I look at myself, I look in the mirror to understand other people or behavior, right, as much as I can. It's like maybe I haven't helped them understand why this is important. Like this, like even down to the level of like, this is how you're going to pay the bills to keep your family going, or this is how you're going to grow in your skill set and your knowledge and your ability to get better jobs in the future, right? All of these things are important. So like I think you kind of need to go both routes so that you can understand when somebody is just slacking off. And then I also try to add to this curiosity. It's like why are they slacking off? Have I paid them so much that they now are so comfortable that they don't feel like they need to work, or this job is not important, right? Though that happens. I've been in that position. I've facilitated that in other people as well. So like, we're going to discuss a lot of these different things and how to really set your systems up so that that responsibility is something that you bear for making sure it works, period, right? And you can take whichever route works best for your personality, but at the end of the day, you've got to be responsible for all this if you want to succeed with an offer, right? You've got to have all these things to succeed with an offer, and that's how we make profit.
And thanks, Brian said people act on what they believe. So again, have we not framed it right? Have we not created the right expectation? And then can we evaluate and make sure that they're doing so? So yeah, so I'm excited. Like I said, we're going to do this for 12 weeks. I've committed to at least 30 hours worth of live training over that period, where I'm going to dive into these. Fletcher's going to be having some calls where he dives into things or maybe gives a different perspective on them. But we just want to make sure that people, with as crappy as 2020 was to some people, that 2021 is a better year. So we just want to help you in whichever capacity of those 4 pillars you're having a roadblock with. If it's all 4, great, we can do that. If it's just certain ones, how can we quickly get you out there making more money? Because there's money being spent right now. You just have to find the right people to get out in front of. So I'm going to put the sales page into the chat down below. It's Weba11y, that's Weba11y.net/cast. You'll see on the sales page a couple of things. Like I said, it's at least 30 hours. It's going to break down the prospecting into a little bit more about what's going with it, the sales, the onboarding, the SEO, and stuff like that. We have 2 things that are coming along with that. As Fletcher kind of mentioned, one of the pillars of what I do is ADA compliant websites. I speak about them everywhere across the country. I provide services for them. Weba11y is a done-for-you, white-labeled ADA website compliant service, so you can make money having someone take care of websites. You don't have to worry about it. You're going to get free access to Weba11y until the end of June. If you want to keep it at that point, then we can discuss the pricing for it. But for the time being, you don't have to pay anything to be able to have access to our wholesale pricing on Weba11y. And I think we have about 2 or 3 more spots left for what we offered the first few people that signed up, where a professional at LinkedIn will actually evaluate your LinkedIn profile, give you some advice on what to do. Trust me, it's important. This person isn't crazy with pricing like some other people I've run into. I think it was in November, actually, I had someone reach out, connect to me on LinkedIn, and wanted to charge me $5,000 to make my LinkedIn profile look better, which I thought was just a little bit high. But anyway, I think as we start doing these things, as you start communicating with more people, LinkedIn is just kind of like your online resume. So it's going to be very important to have that set up properly so that when people look at who is communicating with them, who are they going to have an appointment with, you're framing yourself as the expert in what you're trying to provide for them. And so they just have more confidence when they come to that call. So that's what Weba11y is. Does anyone have any questions, anything we can help you with or answer before we get off of here? Because we always want to try and keep all of our calls to an hour, hour and a half tops. And it's a Friday afternoon. People want to go enjoy the weekend.
A week? What's a weekend? When you're home all the time? Yeah, no, this is I'm really glad this has come together the way it has, Glenn. I just wanted to publicly thank you for all the help you've been to me in starting to see these things more properly, because a lot of this framework, like you kind of you showed me, right? I've understood it, like I've gone in and spent a lot of time like, oh yeah, this is exactly what needs to happen, but these were not things that I was really exposed to that well beforehand. Regardless of all of the training and things like that, it was disconnected, and I had like I guess you could call it a junkyard full of amazingly valuable things that were not assembled well. And it's been one of the reasons why, over, cycles in my life, I would go from business to business. And it was really from offer to offer. There are a lot of things that I can do well enough to make money with it, right? And I could sell it well. But I didn't have these other pillars that kind of bridge that whole gap. And so they didn't become businesses that could operate without me, so to speak. I always, again, pointing, you have to be responsible for them, right? It is not about sitting on the beach and just checking your bank account all the time. You're going to have to do some things, especially if you don't have these in place yet. But ideally, you're involved in your business, doing things that other people could do better than you less, right? And that's really kind of what it comes down to. Or you can just do them all yourself well. That's totally fine too. Like, these are things I can do myself well enough, and I could just run this whole thing with no outsourcers, no service providers. But I would at least know I need to pay attention to all four of these things, or I don't really stand a chance in not having a hectic life, or knowing what to pay attention to when things are not working, right? That's really a big key. This is like, I talked about vehicles. This is like plugging in the scanner and seeing what code your vehicle is throwing back at you, so you know where to go look and say, here's the problem. I need to replace this or repair this. This is your ability to see your own business and why things may or may not be working for you very well.
I'm not sure how to answer Brian's question. He said, spokes in the wheel, need them or don't need them?
Okay, so this speaks to a little bit of SEO understanding that I have. There's a passage that got rolled out with the most recent update for Google. It's called the passages patent. And what it really does is talks about how something called clusters become mature. And clusters are topical clusters, and maturity doesn't really have anything to do with the age of the domain as much as it has to do with the supporting content. So yeah, I think they're important if you're not ranking for 100 keywords on each page. If you want that, then you need to have some spokes on your wheel, not just the hub. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, like I said, guys, Weba11y, we're just /cast. That's web811y.net/cast. We're going to start with a call tomorrow. We're going to start doing calls over the next 12 weeks. We're going to, of course, we'll have a Facebook page. We'll have all these things to kind of communicate with everyone back and forth. But if anyone doesn't have any questions, we look forward to seeing you guys on the inside. It's going to be a lot of fun over the next few months. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a little bit of trying time, because as Fletch mentioned before, he did this, but he didn't do that. That's because we all kind of live in our comfort zone. And it's going to be my goal to kind of help you either expand your comfort zone or feel what it's like to live outside of it. I enjoy that. You can call it an adrenaline junkie with being nervous, whatever you want. But I think it's good to know these other things in order for you guys to know what you can excel in and maybe what you should be not doing because you have a limitation.
Love it. I think that's probably the perfect place to wrap up today's call. But really look forward to seeing people on the inside of this. I'm excited about it. I have not done really any training in membership areas for a little over a year now. So I'm excited to jump back in and get more involved with producing training and helping people not be stuck where they currently are, right? And if we continue to expand our box or our understanding of what's really happening when we're trying to present an offer and get new sales and happy customers on the other end, it just kind of feeds on itself. That's a good model. I have a much greater understanding of that now than I did the last time I offered training. So a lot to hopefully bring to the table and help you guys see.
Awesome. All right, guys, good luck. Thank you very much. Hopefully we'll talk to you guys soon.